Sometimes the hardest thing to accept is not that someone left you. It is that a part of you is still standing at the same door, waiting for them to come back, even after Allah has already shown you that the door is closing. You may call it love, you may call it loyalty. You may tell yourself that you are being patient. You may say, I just need more time. But I want you to understand something carefully. Not every attachment deserves to be preserved, and not every loss is a punishment. Sometimes what feels like emotional destruction is actually separation from something that was slowly becoming too powerful inside your heart. This is where we need to be very careful, because human beings can become attached not only to people, but to outcomes, memories, roles, expectations, apologies, validation, and versions of the future that Allah never promised us. And once that attachment becomes strong enough, we stop asking whether something is good for our deen, our character, our emotional stability, or our relationship with Allah. We only ask one question: how do I keep it? That is when attachment becomes dangerous. I want you to hear this clearly. Islam does not teach emotional numbness. It does not teach you to become cold. It does not tell you that losing someone should not hurt. Yaqub, peace be upon him, grieved deeply. The prophets knew sorrow. The companions knew separation. The righteous knew heartbreak, fear, uncertainty, disappointment, and loss. The problem is not that your heart hurts. The problem begins when your pain becomes a command. When your fear of losing something becomes greater than your willingness to obey Allah. When you tolerate humiliation because you are afraid of being alone. When you keep returning to something harmful because the emptiness after leaving feels unbearable. When you keep interpreting every closed door as something you must force open. When your mind is constantly replaying the same person, the same conversation, the same betrayal, the same possibility, until your salah is distracted, your sleep is disturbed, your self-respect is weakened, and your inner world begins revolving around the creation instead of the creator. That is not simply heartbreak anymore. That is an attachment problem. And Islamic psychology sees attachment differently. Modern psychology may speak about attachment styles, abandonment wounds, emotional dependency, nervous system patterns, trauma responses, or fear of rejection. Some of that language can be genuinely useful. It may help you understand why you cling, why you panic, why you shut down, or why certain relationships feel almost addictive. But Islamic psychology asks another question as well. What has this attachment done to your nafs? What has it done to your qalb? What has it made you believe about yourself? What has it made you believe about Allah? And what are you becoming while trying to keep something that may no longer be good for you? Because sometimes Allah removes a person, an opportunity, a dream, or a relationship, not because you are worthless, but because your heart has begun asking from that thing what only Allah can truly give: security, identity, worth, belonging, meaning, a future. And when creation begins occupying a place in the heart that belongs to the Creator, losing it can feel like losing yourself. But perhaps that is exactly why the attachment has to break. Not to destroy you, to return you. Lesson 1. Name the pain correctly. I want to begin by naming the pain correctly, because if you name the wound incorrectly, you will keep using the wrong treatment. You may say, I miss them. But sometimes you do not only miss the person, you miss who you were when they wanted you. You miss the reassurance. You miss the daily contact. You miss feeling chosen. You miss having someone to imagine a future with. You miss the relief they gave you from your own loneliness. You miss the version of yourself that felt more valuable because they were present. And this distinction matters. Because if you believe the only problem is that this person is gone, you will spend all your energy trying to restore the relationship. But if you realize that what you are really suffering from is emotional dependence, abandonment fear, shattered expectations, humiliation, unmet needs, or a wounded sense of worth, then the work becomes deeper. I want you to ask yourself something difficult. If this person came back exactly as they were, without changing their character, without repairing what they damaged, without becoming more trustworthy, would their return truly heal you, or would it simply silence your anxiety for a while? There is a major difference between healing and relief. Some people return to unhealthy relationships, not because the relationship became healthy, but because reunion temporarily stops the pain of separation. That is not healing, that is anesthesia. And when the emotional pain returns, the cycle begins again. In Islamic psychology, we must refuse to let pain become a false identity. You are not the rejected one. You are not the abandoned one. You are not the person nobody stays for. You are not the worst thing someone did to you. You are not the betrayal. You are not the divorce. You are not the relationship that failed. You are not the person who was not chosen. The wound is real, but it is not your final name. Allah created you with fitrah. Allah gave you moral agency. Allah gave you a qalb that can turn. Allah gave you a nafs that can be disciplined. Allah opened the door of tawbah, growth, repair, and return. So we cannot allow another human being's decision to become a theological conclusion about your worth. And yet this is exactly what many wounded people do. Someone leaves and they conclude, I am unlovable. Someone betrays them and they conclude, I am stupid. Someone chooses somebody else and they conclude, I was never enough. A parent was emotionally unavailable and they conclude, my needs are a burden. A spouse withdraws affection and they conclude, there must be something fundamentally wrong with me. I want you to be careful here. Pain often produces conclusions faster than truth does. Your emotional system may be reacting to rejection, but your mind then creates a story around that rejection. And once the story is repeated enough, it becomes part of the nafs. Now you are not only hurting, you are defending an identity built around the hurt. This is why muhasabah, honest self-accounting, matters. Ask yourself, what exactly am I grieving? Am I grieving the person, the dream, the time I invested, the dignity I sacrificed, the apology I never received, the version of them I kept hoping would appear? Am I grieving what actually existed, or am I grieving what I imagined it could become? This question can be painful, but it can also be liberating, because sometimes you are not attached to reality. You are attached to potential. You are attached to a future version of someone. You are attached to the sentence, maybe one day they will understand me. Maybe one day they will choose me properly. Maybe one day they will become emotionally available. Maybe one day my family will finally respect me. Maybe one day this friendship will become reciprocal. Maybe one day this person will stop hurting me. Hope is not wrong, but hope without evidence can become self-deception. Islam teaches hope in Allah, not blind hope in people. There is a difference. Hope in Allah strengthens your heart even when circumstances change. Blind hope in a person can make you ignore reality because you are emotionally terrified of accepting what is in front of you. So name the pain correctly. Maybe what hurts is not simply losing them. Maybe what hurts is finally having to accept that what you wanted from them may never come. That acceptance is painful, but it is also the beginning of truth. And healing cannot begin until truth is allowed into the room. Lesson 2. What the nafs does when it is wounded. Now I want to go deeper because the nafs does not like losing what it has become attached to. When the nafs is wounded, it becomes restless. It wants control. It wants certainty. It wants relief. It wants an explanation. It wants the person to come back. It wants the last word. It wants to know why. It wants to prove something. It wants to be chosen again. It wants to restore its sense of power. And if we do not understand this, we can mistake the agitation of the nafs for guidance. You may say, I feel strongly that I need to message them. But strength of feeling is not proof of wisdom. You may say, I cannot stop thinking about them, so maybe this means we are meant to be. No. Sometimes you cannot stop thinking about someone because the wound is unresolved. Sometimes because your nafs hates uncertainty. Sometimes because your brain has become used to the emotional cycle. Sometimes because rejection activated old abandonment fears. Sometimes because you are idealizing what you lost. And sometimes because waswaza keeps finding the same emotional doorway and repeatedly pulling your attention through it. We need to distinguish spiritual insight from emotional compulsion. A wounded nafs often becomes obsessive because obsession creates the illusion of control. If I think about it enough, maybe I will understand. If I replay the conversation enough, maybe I will find the exact sentence where everything went wrong. If I monitor their behavior, maybe I will know whether they miss me. If I check their profile, maybe I will see a sign. If I ask enough people for opinions, maybe I will finally feel certain. But notice what happens. The more you feed the obsession, the weaker your inner stability becomes. The nafs promises relief but creates dependence. This is one of its patterns. It tells you, just check one more time. Just send one more message. Just explain yourself one more time. Just look at their page. Just ask what they meant. But one more time becomes 10 more times. And slowly your emotional life becomes organized around the person you are trying to release. This is why spiritual discipline is not cruelty. It is protection. The nafs also reacts through anger. Sometimes the attachment does not look soft. Sometimes it looks like rage. You say you hate the person, but you think about them all day. You say you are done, but you keep rehearsing arguments in your mind. You say you have moved on, but every success is partly motivated by wanting them to regret losing you. That is still attachment. Hatred can be a form of emotional bondage. You can be attached to someone through desire, or you can be attached through resentment. Either way, they continue occupying inner space. The nafs may also move into shame. It says, how could I have allowed this? How could I have been so weak? Why did I go back? Why did I ignore the signs? Why did I tolerate that? Healthy self-accountability is important. Nafs al-lawama, the self-reproaching soul, reflects the conscience that recognizes wrongdoing and feels regret. But regret is supposed to move you toward correction. Shame says something different. Regret says, I did something wrong. Toxic shame says, I am something wrong. That distinction matters. The first can lead to tawbah and maturity. The second can push you into self-hatred and despair. And despair is not purification. I want you to understand that the nafs can even become attached to being wounded. This is uncomfortable, but necessary. Pain can become an identity because identity gives pain structure. You become the betrayed person, the mistreated daughter, the abandoned husband, the one nobody appreciates, the one who always gives and never receives. At first, these descriptions may reflect something real, but eventually, the nafs can begin using them as protection from responsibility. I am this way because of what they did. I cannot trust because of what happened. I cannot change because I was hurt. I cannot forgive because they never apologized. Here we need balance. Trauma affects people. Harm affects people. Betrayal affects people. Islam does not deny causation, but Islamic psychology also refuses to surrender your future to your past. You may not be responsible for what wounded you, but you are responsible for what you feed after the wound. That is emotional responsibility. And this is where tazkiyah begins. Tazkiyah is not pretending the nafs has no pain. It is teaching the nafs that pain does not get to become the ruler. The nafs wants escape, but the qalb needs return. The nafs says, give me back what I lost. The qalb, when it becomes clearer, begins to say, give me what brings me nearer to Allah, even if my desires resist it. That shift is not instant, it is trained. And sometimes the first sign of healing is not that you stop missing someone. It is that you stop obeying every impulse created by missing them. Lesson 3. How the qalb becomes covered. Now I want to speak about the qalb, because attachment is not only emotional, it can become spiritual. In Islamic understanding, the heart is not merely the place of feelings. The qalb is connected to understanding, orientation, intention, receptivity, and spiritual perception. And the qalb changes. That is part of its nature. It can become clear, it can become heavy, it can soften, it can harden, it can become distracted. It can become illuminated by remembrance. It can become veiled by ghafla, heedlessness. And when a person is emotionally wounded, the qalb can begin collecting layers. Resentment, fear, suspicion, desire, comparison, envy, shame, self-hatred, excessive attachment, false beliefs, repeated sin, constant exposure to unhealthy environments. These things do not necessarily destroy the heart, but they can cover it. I want you to imagine what happens when you repeatedly tell your heart, I cannot be okay unless this person comes back. You are teaching the heart dependence. When you say my life has no meaning without them, you are teaching the heart exaggeration. When you say nobody will ever love me again, you are teaching the heart hopelessness. When you say Allah took the only thing that made me happy, You may be unintentionally developing a distorted view of Allah through your pain, and this is serious, not because you are evil, because wounded people can begin interpreting Allah through the wound instead of interpreting the wound through what they know about Allah. You lose something and suddenly you say, Allah does not want good for me. Adwiya is delayed, and you say Allah is ignoring me. A relationship ends and you say Allah always takes away what I love. This is where emotional pain begins touching Aqidah level assumptions, even if a person never says them out loud. So we need to correct the inner narrative carefully. Not every loss is rejection from Allah. Not every delay is abandonment. Not every closed door is deprivation. And not everything you love is necessarily good for you. You know this intellectually, but when the qalb is covered by attachment, you can know something with your mind while living as if the opposite is true. That is why dhikr matters. Dhikr is not background spirituality. It is remembrance that corrects forgetfulness. The essence of ghafla is not simply forgetting information. It is living as if the most important truths are absent. You know Allah is Al-Hakim, the most wise, but your behavior says the relationship is wiser than Allah's decree. You know Allah is a Razzaq, but your heart behaves as if your future depends entirely on one person. You know Allah is Al-Wadud, but you act as though losing human affection means love has disappeared from your life. Dhikr brings the heart back into alignment with reality. And salah does the same. One of the tragedies of unhealthy attachment is that people often become most distracted in salah by the very thing they claim they want Allah to fix. The person enters prayer, but mentally they are still inside the relationship, replaying, imagining, arguing, planning, remembering. This does not mean your salah is worthless. It means your heart is showing you where it is entangled. Pay attention to what repeatedly follows you into prayer. It tells you something about what has taken up inner space. Sometimes the qalb also becomes defensive. You have been hurt so many times that now you confuse hardness with strength. You say, I do not need anybody. I will never trust again. I will never love again. I am done caring. But that is not necessarily healing. That can be scar tissue. Islam does not ask you to become incapable of attachment. It asks you to order your attachments correctly. Love people, but do not worship their presence. Trust people wisely, but do not make them your ultimate security. Care deeply, but do not place creation where only the Creator belongs. This is one of the central tasks of tazkiyah. Classical scholars such as Imam al-Ghazali and Ibn al-Qayyim spoke extensively about the heart, its diseases, its attachments, and the need to purify its orientation. The issue is not simply whether you feel pain. The deeper question is, what has pain taught your heart to love, fear, expect, and depend upon? Because when the heart becomes excessively attached to creation, losing creation can feel spiritually catastrophic. But when the heart is anchored in Allah, loss still hurts, but it does not erase your center. This is what we are trying to recover. Not numbness, center. Lesson 4. Why modern advice often feels incomplete. This is where modern psychology often stops. And I want to be fair here. Modern psychology has developed useful language for attachment, trauma, emotional regulation, grief, boundaries, cognitive distortions, relational patterns, and nervous system responses. Therapy can help people identify patterns they could not see alone. It can help a person understand why they keep choosing emotional unavailable partners, why conflict sends them into panic, why childhood experiences affect adult relationships, or why certain triggers feel disproportionately intense. There is value in this. We do not need to reject useful knowledge simply because it comes from a modern framework. Classical Muslim thinkers such as al-Balkhi and Ibn Sina also recognized the relationship between mental states, the body, habits, environment, and emotional well-being in sophisticated ways. Islamic civilization did not teach us to be intellectually lazy, but we also need to recognize the limits of a framework that does not include the full Islamic understanding of the human being. If the human being is treated only as a brain, nervous system, personality structure, collection of childhood experiences, or social identity, something essential is missing. Where is the nafs? Where is the qalb? Where is fitra? Where is sin? Where is tawbah? Where is worship? Where is accountability? Where is the unseen? Where is Allah? Where is the akhirah? Where is the moral meaning of desire? Where is the distinction between something that regulates you emotionally and something that purifies you spiritually? These are not small additions. They change the entire map. Modern advice may tell you, choose yourself. Islamic psychology asks, which self? The disciplined self, the wounded self, the impulsive self, the ego that wants revenge, the part of you that wants comfort, the part of you that wants Allah? Choose yourself can mean something healthy, like developing boundaries and refusing abuse, or it can become permission to make the nafs the highest authority. Islam does not teach self-erasure, but it also does not teach self-worship. Modern advice may say, do whatever brings you peace, but not everything that feels peaceful is good. Avoidance can feel peaceful, haram can feel relieving, cutting off anyone who challenges you can feel peaceful, escaping responsibility can feel peaceful, spiritual numbness can feel peaceful. Islam asks a harder question. Does this bring you closer to truth, obedience, maturity, and Allah? Modern advice may say, you owe nobody anything. Islam says there are rights. Parents have rights. Children have rights. Spouses have rights. Neighbors have rights. Your body has rights. Your soul has rights. Allah has rights over you. This does not mean tolerating abuse. It means we cannot build healing around pure individualism. Modern psychology may name the wound, but Islamic psychology asks what happened to the soul. It asks what the pain is doing to your worship, what resentment is doing to your heart, what attachment is doing to your tawakkul, what shame is doing to your hope in Allah, what anger is doing to your character, what fear is making you obey, and it asks whether your coping strategy is halal. That matters, because some people heal by becoming arrogant. Some heal by becoming emotionally avoidant. Some heal by entering another haram relationship to numb the previous one. Some heal by obsessing over self-care while neglecting obligations. Some heal by turning every disagreement into toxicity. Some heal by making every painful emotion evidence that everyone else is unsafe. That is not necessarily healing. Sometimes it is just the nafs learning more sophisticated vocabulary. Islamic psychology demands more. It asks for emotional responsibility without emotional denial. It asks for boundaries without cruelty, self-respect without arrogance, sabr without passivity, tawakkul without laziness, forgiveness without foolishness, compassion without enabling, and separation without turning the heart into stone. This is why Islamic psychology can feel more demanding, because it does not merely ask, how do I feel better? It asks, who am I becoming before Allah? That is a deeper question. Lesson 5. The Islamic path of inner healing. So what do you actually do when you know you are holding on to something Allah may be removing? I want to make this practical. The first step is not pretending you no longer care. The first step is honesty, muhasabah. Sit with yourself and ask, what am I afraid will happen if I let this go? Am I afraid of loneliness? Am I afraid no one else will love me? Am I afraid I wasted years? Am I afraid they will be happy without me? Am I afraid letting go means they won? Am I afraid I will have to face myself without distraction? That answer matters, because sometimes the attachment is protecting you from another pain underneath it. Then comes tawbah. And I do not mean only tawbah from obvious sins. Sometimes you need tawbah from the way you treated yourself, from repeatedly crossing your own boundaries, from haram contact you kept justifying, from emotional dependence, from neglecting salah because of a relationship, from stalking someone's life online, from gossiping about them constantly, from revenge fantasies, from humiliating yourself for attention, from believing you had to disobey Allah to keep someone. Tawbah is not Allah humiliating you. Tawbah is Allah opening a door. It allows you to say, I did wrong, but I do not have to remain the person who keeps doing wrong. That is mercy. Then dhikr, not mechanical repetition while your mind remains everywhere else. Conscious remembrance. You need to retrain your inner world to remember Allah more frequently than it remembers the attachment. That will not happen automatically. If you spend 2 hours checking someone's profile, replaying memories, listening to songs connected to them, discussing them with friends, and then spend 2 distracted minutes in dhikr, do not be surprised that your heart remains occupied. Attention feeds attachment. Where attention goes repeatedly, emotional significance grows. So redirect attention intentionally. This is spiritual discipline. Then salah. Protect it. Do not wait until your emotions improve. Pray while confused. Pray while grieving. Pray while angry. Pray while numb. Pray while your mind wanders, and keep bringing it back. You are training the heart to return. Salah is itself a pattern of return. Again and again. You stand before Allah. Again and again. Your mind escapes. Again and again. You bring it back. That is deeply relevant to emotional healing. Then sabr. And I want to correct the common misunderstanding here. Sabr does not mean doing nothing. Sabr means remaining steady upon what is right while something inside you wants immediate relief. Sabr may mean not messaging them, not retaliating, not exposing their secrets, not returning to the same cycle, not numbing yourself with haram, not abandoning your responsibilities because you are hurt. Sabr is active restraint. Then tawakkul. Tawakkul is not saying whatever happens, happens. Tawakkul means you take responsible action, and then you stop pretending you control outcomes. You can communicate clearly. You can seek counsel. You can repair what is repairable. You can set boundaries. You can leave what is harmful. You can make dua, but you cannot force a heart. You cannot force loyalty. You cannot force emotional maturity. You cannot force another person to become safe. You cannot force a closed chapter to reopen exactly as you want. At some point, tawakkul requires release. Then environment. If you are trying to detach from something unhealthy while surrounding yourself with reminders of it all day, you are making healing unnecessarily difficult. Remove the triggers you can reasonably remove. Change routines. Stop revisiting old messages. Stop romanticizing the past. Stop asking mutual friends for updates. Do not keep reopening what you are asking Allah to heal. Good companionship matters here too. Stay near people who return you to Allah, not people who feed obsession. Some friends do not help you heal. They help you rehearse the wound. Every conversation becomes an autopsy of the same relationship. Why did they do that? What do you think they meant? Do you think they still care? At some point, this is not processing anymore. It is rumination with an audience. You also need service. Do something useful. Help family. Serve your community. Study, work, exercise, build, learn, give. Pain makes the self contract around itself. Service expands you beyond the wound. Then boundaries. Forgiveness does not mean unlimited access. Compassion does not mean reopening every door. You can wish someone well and still keep distance. You can forgive and still refuse reconciliation when trust has been repeatedly violated. You can respect family and still set limits around emotional abuse. You can stop hating someone without inviting them back into the same position. This is maturity. And finally, dua. But do not only make dua for the person or outcome. Make dua for your heart. Ask Allah to remove what harms your deen. Ask Allah to purify your attachment. Ask Allah to give you clarity without bitterness. Ask Allah to replace what you lost with what is better for your faith, character, and future. Ask Allah to make your heart satisfied with Him even when your desires are disappointed. That is a deeper dua. Lesson 6. What you must stop feeding inside yourself. Now I need to confront something directly. You cannot ask Allah to heal what you keep feeding every day. You cannot ask for detachment while maintaining every ritual of attachment. You cannot ask for clarity while constantly exposing yourself to confusion. You cannot ask Allah to free your heart while you repeatedly hand your heart back to the same trigger. At some point, healing requires cooperation. Stop feeding resentment. I know they may have wronged you. I know some people never apologize. Some never understand what they did. Some rewrite the story until they become the victim. Some walk away without accountability. But if your mind is constantly rehearsing their wrongdoing, you are allowing their behavior to remain spiritually active inside you. Justice matters. Boundaries matter. Truth matters. But resentment is different. Resentment says, I need to keep this alive. And the longer you feed it, the more it shapes you. Stop feeding the victim identity. Again, this does not mean denying that you were victimized. There are real victims of abuse, betrayal, neglect, manipulation, and injustice. But something terrible can happen when a true event becomes a permanent identity. Your entire personality begins organizing around what was done to you. Every new person is interpreted through the old wound. Every disagreement becomes proof. Every delay becomes rejection. Every boundary becomes abandonment. Every criticism becomes attack. The past begins colonizing the present. Islam does not ask you to deny the wound. It asks you not to build a throne for it. Pain can become an identity, but Islam turns pain into purification. Stop feeding haram comfort. Do not use one attachment to escape another. Do not jump into emotional intimacy with someone new just because being alone feels frightening. Do not return to pornography, substances, secret conversations, casual relationships, compulsive scrolling, or anything else that numbs the heart while weakening the soul. The nafs loves fast relief, but fast relief often creates slow damage. Stop feeding endless overthinking. There is a point where reflection becomes rumination. Muhasabah asks, what can I learn? Rumination asks, how can I keep the wound active? Muhasabah produces clarity. Rumination produces loops. If you have thought about the same question for 6 months and no new information exists, more thinking may not be wisdom, it may be compulsion. Stop feeding comparison. Do not look at the person who replaced you and measure your worth. Do not compare your face, your income, your body, your personality, your family, your education, your social status. Comparison will tempt you to believe rejection happened because someone else possessed more human value. That is not how worth works. People choose based on preference, maturity, attraction, timing, compatibility, fears, flaws, desires, pressure, and countless other factors. Another person being chosen does not reduce your value before Allah. Stop feeding self-hatred. You may have made mistakes. You may have ignored red flags. You may have begged. You may have returned too many times. You may have sinned. You may have acted out of fear. Take responsibility, but do not confuse accountability with cruelty. The nafs can become strangely attached to self-punishment because self-punishment feels like control. If I hate myself enough, maybe I will never make this mistake again. No. Shame often creates repetition. Tawbah creates change. Stop feeding excuses too. Some people hide behind the language of healing. I am triggered. I have trauma. I am anxious. My attachment style is this. These things can be real. But explanation is not exemption. Your wounds explain some of your reactions. They do not automatically justify every reaction. You are still responsible for your tongue, your boundaries, your choices, your prayers, your repentance, your treatment of others, your pursuit of help, your willingness to change. This is one of the differences between Islamic psychology and shallow self-help. Islam gives compassion, but it also gives accountability, and both are mercy. Stop feeding spiritual laziness. Do not wait to feel spiritually powerful before you return to Allah. The person who says, my iman is weak, so I cannot focus in prayer, may need to understand that prayer is part of how iman is strengthened. The person who says, I feel far from Allah, so dhikr feels fake, may need to understand that dhikr is one of the paths back from distance. The person who says, I do not feel like making du'a, may need to make du'a from exactly that place. Do not turn your current state into an excuse for remaining there. And stop feeding the fantasy that healing requires getting the person back. Sometimes closure is not a conversation. Sometimes closure is acceptance. Sometimes the apology never comes. Sometimes the explanation is incomplete. Sometimes you never fully understand why. You still have to live. You still have to pray. You still have to grow. You still have a soul to protect. Do not make your healing dependent on the emotional maturity of someone who may never develop it. Lesson 7. Returning to your fitra. I want to end the lessons with hope, but not shallow hope. Not the kind that says, everything will work out exactly how you want. That is not a promise I can make. The deeper hope is this. You are not permanently defined by what wounded you. Your fitra is still alive, beneath the fear, beneath the shame, beneath the attachment, beneath the sin, beneath the resentment, beneath the numbness, beneath the confusion. There is still something in you that recognizes truth when it hears it. There is still something in you that wants Allah, even if your desires keep distracting you. Now, there is still something in you that feels the difference between relief and real peace. No. There is still something in you that knows when you are betraying yourself spiritually. That is why you feel conflict. The conflict itself can be evidence that the heart is not dead. A completely indifferent heart does not struggle in the same way. You are struggling because there is still a return happening inside you. Fitra does not mean you will never be wounded. It means the wound does not erase the original capacity Allah placed within you to recognize, seek, and return to Him. The world may call you broken, but Islam says your fitra is still alive. And this matters because people often become hopeless after repeating the same pattern. I always attach too quickly. I always choose the wrong person. I always go back. I always destroy my boundaries. I always panic when someone pulls away. I want you to stop turning patterns into prophecies. A pattern is something repeated. It is not destiny. You learned certain responses. You can unlearn them. You developed certain emotional habits. They can be disciplined. You became used to seeking worth from people. You can retrain the heart to seek worth through obedience, dignity, and closeness to Allah. This is tazkiyah. It is gradual. It is not glamorous. Sometimes it looks like deleting a number. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed for Fajr. Sometimes it looks like refusing to reread an old conversation. Sometimes it looks like apologizing for your own behavior. Sometimes it looks like speaking to a trustworthy scholar. Sometimes it looks like seeking professional therapy because your symptoms are affecting daily functioning and you need more support. There is no contradiction in using appropriate professional help while grounding your healing in Islam. The body has rights. The mind has needs. The soul has needs. We do not have to reduce everything to one category, but the deepest return is still to Allah. Because even when therapy helps you regulate, Allah gives meaning to why you regulate. Even when boundaries protect you, Allah teaches you what kind of person you should become behind those boundaries. Even when insight helps you understand childhood pain, tawbah and tazkiyah help you decide what you will do with that understanding. Even when you learn to calm your nervous system, the qalb still needs dhikr. Even when your self-esteem improves, the nafs still needs discipline. Even when you become confident, you still need humility. This is integration. You do not have to choose between emotional intelligence and spiritual depth. You need both. But do not confuse emotional comfort with spiritual health. Sometimes Allah's healing begins by making you uncomfortable enough to leave what was poisoning you. Sometimes your dua for peace is answered through separation. Sometimes your dua for guidance is answered by exposing someone's character. Sometimes your dua for closeness to Allah is answered by removing the thing you were leaning on too heavily. And at first you may call that loss. Later you may recognize it as mercy. Not because the person was necessarily evil. Not because every separation is divine punishment. Not because every failed relationship is a mystical sign. We need intellectual discipline here. But when something repeatedly damages your deen, your dignity, your emotional stability, your boundaries, and your relationship with Allah, you should not romanticize your attachment simply because it is strong. Intensity is not evidence of goodness. You can be intensely attached to what harms you. That is why fitra must be supported by revelation, discipline, wisdom, and good counsel. Return to the simpler questions. Does this bring me closer to Allah or further? Does this relationship strengthen my character or constantly destabilize it? Am I becoming more truthful, more responsible, more patient, more dignified, or more anxious, deceptive, obsessive, resentful, and spiritually distracted? Does this attachment require me to keep crossing boundaries Allah has placed? Does it require me to keep abandoning myself? Does it repeatedly produce sin? These questions can cut through emotional fog. And then trust that Allah can build a life after the thing you thought you could not survive losing. Your future is not trapped inside one person. Your capacity to love is not trapped inside one relationship. Your dignity is not trapped inside one rejection. Your provision is not trapped inside one opportunity. Your joy is not trapped inside one chapter. Allah is greater than the thing you lost. And when the heart begins truly knowing that, release becomes possible. closing message. I want to leave you with one final thought. Maybe the question is not, why is Allah taking this away from me? Maybe the deeper question is, what is Allah trying to free inside me? Maybe He is exposing how dependent your heart became. Maybe He is showing you the cost of ignoring your boundaries. Maybe He is revealing a wound you kept covering with attachment. Maybe He is teaching you that love without obedience is not enough. Maybe He is teaching you that another human being cannot carry the weight of being your source of worth, identity, security, and meaning. And maybe what feels like your heart breaking is actually your false dependence breaking. Do not rush the process. Do not shame yourself for grieving. Do not pretend you are fine when you are not, but do not worship the grief either. Bring it to Allah. Bring the confusion. Bring the shame. Bring the longing. Bring the anger. Bring the questions. Bring the weakness. Bring the part of you that still wants to go back. And then begin the work. Tawbah, muhasabah, dhikr, salah, sabr, tawakkul, discipline, boundaries, good companionship, honest responsibility. This is how the nafs is trained. This is how the qalb is purified. This is how fitra begins to breathe again beneath the layers. And if you are struggling with severe anxiety, depression, trauma symptoms, self-harm thoughts, or anything affecting your ability to function, seek appropriate professional and scholarly support. Getting help is not a contradiction of tawakkul. Taking the means is part of responsibility. But wherever you are in the process, do not let the wound convince you that Allah has finished with you. He has not. Do not let the sin convince you that tawbah is closed. It is not. Do not let the attachment convince you that you cannot live without what you lost. You can. And do not let the world tell you that you are only a collection of wounds, diagnoses, patterns, and coping mechanisms. You are an abd of Allah. You have a nafs that can be disciplined, a qalb that can be cleansed, a fitra that can be uncovered, a past that can be repented from, and a future that has not yet been written into your experience. So if Allah is removing something, do not immediately assume He is emptying your life. He may be making space, space for clarity, space for dignity, space for worship, space for healthier love, space for a stronger heart, space for a version of you that no longer confuses attachment with safety. The wound is real, but it is not your final name. The attachment is strong, but it is not stronger than Allah. And sometimes the greatest mercy is not getting back what you lost. Sometimes the greatest mercy is becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to lose themselves in order to keep it.